Yes, the thumbnail did not lie to you, this is not clickbait. Asta is actually only at 13%. In this video, I will address that, as well as the main part of the video, which is Asta's strength at the end of the series. So stick around for all of that. Manga spoilers. Also, I'm going to be addressing a theory that I've talked about before, which is Asta's 4th sword. I'm going to be mentioning that, so if you haven't watched that video, watch that video so you understand where I'm coming from with this. Thanks. Now, on to the video. At the start of the series, when Asta first got his black form, Asta was able to use 10% of the anti-magic from the Demon Slayer sword. During the 6 months we've seen him fight, he's gained an extra 5% whilst he's fighting, because we know he has gotten stronger, and that was during 6 months. To the time skip was another 6 months. Doing simple maths, it makes sense to double his strength, meaning Asta has 30% after the time skip. Now we move on to Dante. When Asta was originally fighting Dante, he was at 30%. Dante killed Gorsh. This made Asta tap into his negative emotions, making him stronger, and I would say that Asta got to 40% of his strength. Dante was also using 40% of his strength before this point, and then when Asta ended up using 40%, Dante realized that he couldn't keep beating Asta with 40%, so Asta forced him to go to 50%. Then Yami came and he got Dante up to 80% plus his original magic. Now Asta thought he was holding Yami back, so he made a deal with the devil. In exchange for his arm, he was shown true power. Now the reason why I say Asta was using 40% is because the anti-magic devil said that Asta wasn't using his true power. I would say that anything under 50% isn't someone's true power, so the numbers are adding up so far. After Asta made the deal, Asta's strength was doubled, because that would make sense as showing Asta true power, and the anti-magic devil also said that Asta couldn't handle all of the power yet, and since the anti-magic devil wants to show how weak Asta was before, doubling his strength makes sense, and Asta can now pull out 80% anti-magic from the Demon Slayer sword. Now next is the final 20% that he can't pull out the Demon Slayer sword. This would equate to Asta after the 6 months we've seen him fighting, plus an extra 5%, and that would be Asta at 100% when he uses the Demon Slayer sword. Now you might be realizing so far, I just said Asta is at 80%, but I also said that Asta's barely using any percent in the thumbnail. I'm not capping, I'm getting to that, keep watching. When Asta was talking about the Demon Destroyer sword, he said that it specifically follows magic. We know anti-magic does this anyway, but it made it seem like this sword does it in a special way, in a way that the other swords can't compare. In my mind, I see the Demon Destroyer sword having double the anti-magic as the Demon Slayer sword making sense. That means that Asta can use, at this point, when Asta gets to 100% of what he can use in a Demon Slayer sword, he can use 50% of what he could possibly use in a Demon Destroyer sword. Meaning, Asta so far has to be doubled to be equal to what Asta can use with the Demon Destroyer sword. Now, this is where my theory gets in. In the other video, I mentioned Asta's 4th sword and named it the Demon Sealer sword. If you haven't watched that video, go watch that video and then come back to this. I mentioned and perfectly explained why that sword being double the strength of the Demon Destroyer sword makes sense. Meaning, Asta, at this point, is using again half of the power he could possibly use from the Demon Sealer sword, meaning again we have to double his strength. Now Asta is able to use 100% of what he can use in the Demon Sealer sword. You would normally be thinking that is the end. Asta can't use any more anti-magic. This is his cap. He has finally capped out. That is false. We know how anti-magic works. Asta draws in anti-magic from his swords. However, throughout the whole of the series, we have only ever seen Asta drawing in anti-magic from one sword at a time. Going off of my theory, Asta has 4 or will have 4 swords, basically all of different strengths, meaning Asta can pull out more anti-magic. And if we say that Asta's maximum form is when he's using the Demon Destroyer sword and the Demon Sealer sword, then that is Asta's final strength. Now, it would be harder for him to pull out more anti-magic from 2 swords at once, which is most likely why it hasn't happened yet. Asta's final form would be when he can pull out anti-magic from the Demon Destroyer and the Demon Sealer sword. And going off of that, let's do the maths of how strong Asta is at this point. If we convert each anti-magic sword into anti-magic points, we can get Asta's predicted strength at this point. So the Demon Slayer sword is worth 100 anti-magic points. The Demon Dweller sword is also worth the same. The Demon Destroyer sword is worth 200 anti-magic points because it's worth double the amount of the Demon Slayer sword, meaning we're at 200 so far. Next is the Demon Sealer sword. The Demon Sealer sword, like I said before, is worth double again of the Demon Destroyer sword, meaning we're now at 400. And now if we add these two swords together, we get Asta's final strength at the end of the series, which is 600. In the manga series so far, going off of these points, Asta is able to use 80 points of anti-magic out of everything he can use. Now if you do the maths, 80 divided by 600, then times by 100, and we will get Asta's strength in the manga series so far after he made the deal with the devil. And that number, 13.3 recurring. Now if you round that up, we get 14%. Now I know this is very theoretical. This somewhat doesn't make sense if Asta doesn't get a fourth sword, or if his fourth sword isn't as strong as I think it is. So let's go off the assumption Asta doesn't get a fourth sword now. He's still barely using anything. If we just remove the Demon Sealer sword and we only focus on his 3 first swords, Asta has 300 points maximum. The thing is, the Demon Dweller sword is actually slightly stronger than the Demon Slayer sword, as it allows him to do Black Slash and attacks that lets him do range, and he can also absorb magic in. So I would actually put the Demon Dweller sword slightly above the Demon Slayer sword, meaning I'm giving Asta 110 points for the Demon Dweller sword, and the Demon Destroyer sword is worth 200. Now if we add these together, we get 310. Now going off with the same maths, because the fact that we remove the Demon Sealer sword doesn't change the fact that you can only pull out 80 points worth of anti-magic from the Demon Slayer sword, meaning 80 divided by 310 times by 100 is 25.8% of what Asta can use. Asta right now is able to use about 25%, but if we round up, because it's 25.8, he's able to use 26% of his final strength at the end of the series. Meaning Asta has another 74% that he hasn't even touched. If you were to call the Asta at the end of the series ED Asta, and Asta right now in the manga series as I'm making this video, Asta, if they were to fight, the fight would go like this. That is some serious damage. And that's going off of the fact that there isn't a fourth sword. Still, if there still isn't even a fourth sword, that is what would basically happen. Asta would get. But yeah, that is Asta right now and Asta at the end of the series. It's a huge gap. Asta has so much growth. Anyway, that's what I believe. Like the video if you like the video. Subscribe if you want to see more content like this. I make content like this regularly, and comment whether you agree, disagree, and how strong you think Asta is right now compared to how strong you think Asta will be by the end of the series. Thanks, that's Lord Mushoku signing out. Peace.